Welcome to the local campaign, and thank you for joining us for our debate in the riding of Orléans. In just a moment, I'll introduce to you the candidates who are here for the debate. But first, let me quickly explain how this debate is going to work. Each candidate will have 1 minute to provide an opening statement. The order for those opening statements was drawn at random just before we began our telecast. After that, I will direct a question to each of the candidates in order. That candidate will have 45 seconds to respond to the question, after which we will open it up to debate from all the candidates on that particular topic. The candidates will have the opportunity to offer their views on that issue, challenge each other, get into a discussion about the issues, and then at the conclusion of that debate, we will go back to the candidate to whom the question was originally directed, and he or she will have 30 seconds to wrap up on that topic. We'll move through a number of different topics that way, and then we'll wrap up with closing statements. We will do those in the reverse order of the opening statements. So let's meet the candidates who are here for our debate for the riding of Orléans. First is the Liberal candidate, Marie-France Lalonde. The Conservative candidate is David Burchi. And the Green Party candidate is Michelle Peterson. There are two other candidates in this election on October the 21st who were not able to join us for this debate. Roger Saint-Fleur from the People's Party of Canada and Jackie Wiens from the New Democratic Party. So let's get things started, and we'll begin with the opening statement from Liberal Party candidate Marie-France Lalonde. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. This election is an important one. We're at a critical moment in our country where we need to keep building on the progress we've made in the past 4 years. We've made real change in the everyday lives of people of Orléans. The new Canada Child Benefit has helped over 24,000 kids in Orléans. We've lowered the small business tax rate from 11 to 9%. We've given more support for mental health care, home care, and caregivers, and we're taking strong action to tackle climate change while remaining focused on building a strong economy. Real change is working, but we can't let Andrew Scheer and the Conservative take us back to the failed policies of Harper. I want to move forward with a real plan for what matters most. I say thank you for having me here, and I look forward to our discussion.
All right, thank you. Next up is the Conservative candidate, David Burchi. Go ahead.
My name is David Burchi, and I'm the Conservative candidate in Orléans. I was born in Saint-Adèle, Quebec, and educated in French. I am fluently bilingual. I've lived in Orléans for over 33 years while raising 6 kids with my wife and in a small business. As a lawyer, as a part-time prosecutor, I have acted for thousands of small businesses in Orléans and the residents. I've been a strong advocate and champion for our community through various organizations. I have knocked on tens of thousands of doors over the last 8 months. People in Orléans are telling me life has become more costly and it's less affordable now than it was 4 years ago. They understand that budgets don't balance themselves. They are worried about who's going to be paying for Mr. Trudeau's enormous deficits and spending promises. I was raised to live within my means. I know that actions speak louder than words. I have a track record of being a champion for Orléans. I am asking for your vote on October 21st. Thank you.
And finally, Michelle Peterson, the Green Party candidate. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mark. Residents of Orléans, thanks so much for being with us tonight. I am a registered psychotherapist. I am a single mom, and I am a proud Franco-Ontarian. I grew up in Orléans, and I came back here to raise my family. Much like you, I care deeply about this community. When I think of the future of Orléans, I am excited about so many projects that are underway, whether it's the arrival of light rail, the opening of the Amazon distribution center, or the construction of the Montfort Health Hub. At the same time, I am also deeply worried. I'm worried about the impacts of climate change as they affect our community. They have literally hit home. How will we make Orléans a vibrant, prosperous, and safe community without addressing the climate change? Tonight, I will do my best to share with you the hope and inspiration which I believe transpire through the Green Party's vision. I hope to convince you to join us to share in our vision of honest, ethical, and caring leadership. Thank you for being with us.
All right, thank you. And thank you to all the candidates. Let's begin now with a question to Marie-France Lalonde, the Liberal Party candidate. You listed off some of the accomplishments of the past 4 years of the Liberal government. One of the commitments that was made in the last election campaign was to run small budget deficits of $10 billion a year for 3 years and then balance the books this year. That promise was broken, and in fact, going forward, your party is proposing to run even bigger deficits. Can we really afford to pass on more debt to our children and our grandchildren? You have 45 seconds on this topic, and then we'll open it up to everyone.
Well, our plan is to invest in people. We can't afford not to. What is the cost of not investing? Not only do we need to invest in the people, we also need to invest in infrastructure. The Conservative left us with 10 years behind on infrastructure funding. We've been working hard to fix that. Our plan is working. Since 2015, Canadians have created over 1 million new jobs and unemployment rate is at an all-time low. We also have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. Conservative on focus on balancing the budget on the back of Canadians, and they never do.
Okay, it's open to everyone. Go ahead.
False, as the Liberals know full well, when they were elected in 2015, they actually had a modest surplus. And the simple fact of the matter is that Canadians today, the middle-class Canadians, pay $800 more a year in taxes alone. Andrew Scheer is the only one who's bringing forward a very good plan that invests in Canadians, unlike the Liberal plan, which said they were going to invest in Canadians and invest in infrastructure. We have the debt, we have no infrastructure. We are taking away the GST on home heating. We are bringing back the tax credit that the Liberals took away, not only for transit, but also for home renovations, for energy sufficient and efficient homes. We're also bringing back something that the Liberals took away, which was, as you know, something that was called the disability tax credit. Why you take away a disability tax credit on people, the Liberals did it, but they don't mention it. Honest, upfront, clear government, responsibly managed is what Andrew Scheer and the Conservative Party of Canada is going to bring, and I will fight for the residents of Orleans to make sure that happens. As a small business owner, it's very important to pay our debts, make sure we're not overwhelmed. I was brought up to manage and live within our means. The government can invest.
If I could insert myself here, I would like to add the Green Party's position on this. We're talking about deficits and what we're willing to incur as deficits when we think about our children and our grandchildren. I think the Green Party has a vision that goes beyond that for me. I think a lot of the residents I've been hearing when knocking on doors, participating in public events, are really quite exhausted by the rhetoric going back and forth between the Liberals and Conservative parties, pointing fingers about who's responsible for where we're at, whether it's debt, whether it's the situation related to climate change. And I think it's time to have a longer-term vision. It's enough of taking one step forward and taking 2 steps back. We want to move forward together. The Green Party is presenting a long-term vision. We're presenting a strategic plan that is made of 20 points called Mission Possible that is getting Canada back on track in meeting our UN targets for sustainable development. The Green Party has a vision that is not about just a 4-year mandate. It's about getting Canada back on track as a global leader, whether it's in social justice or environmental justice, and to stick to our true Canadian values.
Well, Michelle, I think we can agree technology investment is very important, and a tax on carbon when it's not effective is not of little use. So what we're looking at is investing the carbon tax. You look at BC; they had it for 10 years. Let me put carbon tax. Madame Lalonde, my mother taught me to be polite and let someone finish a sentence.
Mr. Burchi,
no, you're
taking all the
interrupting
time.
me. Well, no, Mrs. Lalonde, let's be clear. We are encouraging and we are making companies impose technological advancements, which in turn, we all know that the carbon tax doesn't work. Everyone knows that BC's carbon tax has been in effect for almost 15 years, and the net effect is a 1.5% reduction. Regulations in Ontario, not a carbon tax, have worked to 22.4% reduction in carbon. The facts speak for themselves. You're entitled to your opinions, Madame Lalonde, but you're certainly not entitled to the facts.
Well, I think this is a point where we can respectfully disagree.
I agree.
When I
agree.
think of the Green Party and our vision going forward, we're definitely going to maintain a carbon price. And we are looking to move forward at reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. We're looking at investing and making cuts where we need to. We're going to go from a 60% reduction of greenhouse gas reduction against 2005 levels by 2030 and zero emissions by 2050.
But I thought we were talking about affordability and, more importantly, the huge deficits that the Liberals are going up. That was the question, so I'm looking. Oh, I know you are.
You've done very well as a Conservative member to increase our deficit.
Well, I'm looking very well. No.
I'm sorry to
Let
say.
me just
We have to
say,
look at the real
if we're going to
facts.
talk about the real question being asked, there was an attack on
Because
small.
that's time anyway. Marie-France Lalonde, you were asked the question, so you get the final 30 seconds on your own.
Thank you very much. So, you know what? We want to make life more affordable for you in our middle class. Certainly in Orleans, we need to invest in seniors. So we will be providing a 10% increase in your old age security. We're also, and I hear this at the door for several years, more mental health supports. We will be investing in that component. We also have a clear plan on our environment. And yes, putting a price on pollution is working, and we'll return those revenue back to you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the next question now, which I'll direct to Conservative candidate David Birchie. Andrew Scheer, your leader, has said that if he is Prime Minister, he will not reverse any decisions about issues like same-sex marriage or abortion. But in 2019, do you think Canadians want more than just a leader who won't turn back the clock on those issues, but actually will defend the rights of members of the LGBTQ community and women, someone who shares their values? You have 45 seconds.
Andrew Scheer is committed, as is our government, and myself in particular, to advance the rights of all Canadians. A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, and the simple fact of the matter is Andrew Scheer has clearly and unequivocally said that his personal beliefs, and he's admitted them, just like Justin Trudeau said, he is not pro-women with respect to pro-abortion. Justin Trudeau said it, Andrew Scheer has said it. Who better to believe than Andrew Scheer, especially when you look at how Mr. Trudeau attacked small businesses and tried to put 73% taxes on passive income, the very retirement income that doctors and professionals and small businesses wanted to do. Justin Trudeau is not advertised, and I wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw him.
Okay, it's open to everyone now.
So the question was very clear. Will your leader stand for the minority and for rights of women?
And
I
the
think
answer
that
is clear, yes.
Actually,
It's been
he never
crystal
said,
clear.
No, actually, he's
Yeah, he
never
did.
been able to say that. You know
He
what?
said it
He says that he will
directly.
not going to open a law. He says that he was not going to open a law. That's
No,
been
he
passed
said he wasn't passing
historically.
it.
No,
He said he wasn't going to change the law. The law is
And
clear.
at one point, there was some confusion because
There's
some
no
member
confusion.
of
You
our
trying to
caucus
bring-
of the Conservative.
Just remind you that when you're both talking at the same time, the audience won't
Yeah,
hear either
exactly.
of you. So let's
I've
take a turn.
experienced that before.
So I want to say, actually, there was some confusion, and still today, Andrew Scheer has not been able to come very strong on that. He's never marched in our Pride Parade. He's actually was never there. He was not even at the climate change march. And what's most important for me is that, you know what? We, Liberal Party, believe that everyone is welcome.
Mr. Scheer hasn't worn a
Everyone
blackface either.
has-
And the simple
everyone-
fact of the matter is, when you look at that issue, what I'm hearing door to door, Mr. Scheer is sincere, he's very honest, and he does what he says. He is not going to reopen the issue. It's quite clear. I believe him. I've marched in the Pride parades
Well, you used
in
to be a
Ottawa.
Liberal, so maybe,
no, I'm
but
my,
I have
the
to
Liberal
say
Party.
to
Am
you-
I allowed the same courtesy now that I can finish my sentence? So 1 minute, please. I'm very proud. The Liberal Party that I used to belong to doesn't exist anymore. And when it comes to the rights of people and putting their hands on the chests of women, Mr. Trudeau has nothing to teach Canadians about. What's important today is looking at I participated in the Pride Parade, and I'll tell you something. Mr. Trudeau, we can show our support.
Yeah.
We can show our support by going to debates. Mr. Trudeau doesn't believe in democracy, I guess. He doesn't show up at debates.
I
He'd
would
rather
like
there
to
be for a photo op
have
than
an
a real
opportunity to
substantive
step in
matter.
here,
I think you have
Mr.
130.
I'd like an opportunity to address our residents on this matter. It's one that's really dear to me. I come from a social services background, and for the last 8 years of my career, I worked for Cadax Francophone d'Ottawa, which is the Francophone Sexual Assault Support Center. So the rights of women were at the forefront and center of our mission of serving women who were survivors of sexual violence. The idea that abortion might be even a question that might be up for discussion
Yeah.
at this
Well, it's
stage in
not.
2019
Well, it is.
You're making it
is profoundly disturbing to me, not only as a woman, but as a parent, as an advocate for women's rights. I don't want to talk about our federal leaders and what they say and don't say. What I want to know is what our local representatives stand for, and I can assure you that I will be an advocate for women in particular, but all minority groups who are affected by lacking privilege and having trouble stepping forward. And it is essential in 2019 for us to recognize that there still exists extreme inequities between women and men, whether they're pay equities, whether they're realities of being I'm thinking of childcare services that affect us.
Well, as a human rights prosecutor, prosecuting people who discriminate against women, you know, and the people in Orleans know that I will stand up for the rights of all.
We'll go back to you for the final 30 seconds. David Birchie.
It's clear I've been a human rights prosecutor. I've prosecuted people who discriminated against visible minorities in Ontario throughout the province, specifically those who discriminated against women. I was raised by a single mom. I have 2 daughters. I believe in the woman's right to choose, and I personally will support that. And I'm very confident that Andrew Scheer believes in the rights of all, and he has specifically stated categorically that he will not reopen the debate. He will allow the laws and the Supreme Court of Canada decision to stand.
That's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move to our next question, which I will direct to the Green Party candidate, Michelle Peterson. This seems like an issue we talk about every election, municipal, provincial, federal. But what can we do to drive the economy of the east end of Ottawa in particular? How can we bring more jobs and economic activity to Orleans?
Thanks for the question, Mark. I think it's true. It's a question that comes up at every election, at every level of government. I believe that in Orleans we need a long-term vision. We're looking at all sorts of projects coming our way, and there is enormous potential right now to develop infrastructure to make Orleans a really vibrant and prosperous community. We've had so many great events taking place in Orleans. I'm thinking of the festivals like the Beer Fest, the Poutine Fest, the Rib Fest, the list goes on and on. It draws a crowd to Orleans. It makes us proud of that. It gives us a special flavor and color. And I think it's time to invest, not start investing, we have invested, but to continue investing in that and as well as in the Francophone community.
Okay, it's open to everyone on the local economy.
I think, you know what, I said this from the day one. I will continue to champion our community as a prime destination for new businesses and federal employment. I believe that we need a strategic plan. We've talked with the Invest Ottawa at the city level. With the LRT, this is our game changer coming to Trim Road. It's a huge investment. We had Amazon in the last year that will schedule to open very shortly. And like Michelle says, we've seen so many great things happening. And those things happen because we invest, we continue to believe. And I believe in Orleans. I've believed in Orleans since I moved in 20 years ago. I've actually built a business in Orleans and employed individuals. So for me, Orleans is about creating a niche market. And one thing that I was very happy to see is a pilot project, a first pilot project for 2 years at the Place d'Orleans, where federal public servant will be able to co-share station. And we have this in place right now. And you know what? My role, if elected, will be to not only monitor, but expand on that pilot project. I also spoke to business people for several years. We had numerous. I've been a chamber member since 2001. And one thing that we all agree is that we need that vision. We need a niche market. One thing important in our platform is the fact that we will provide clean tech industry 50% of corporate tax reduction. You know what? I think Orleans is ready to define ourselves as the clean tech area.
Well, I find it interesting. I always said, as the chair of the Chamber of Commerce for Orleans and as a board member and as a member for over 25 years, that actions speak louder than words. Andrew Leslie, the former Liberal MP, said he was going to bring back DND into Orleans. He would fight for that.
Actually, sadly, he tried very hard, but the Harper government made a commitment to transfer those in 2011.
Well, he could have done it. Marie-France Lalonde was in provincial government and didn't bring one job. So into Orleans at the provincial basis.
Actually,
they are now 50
Amazon,
jobs,
the Orleans Health
provincial
Hub
government
there.
jobs, Madam.
I would say the festivals are
Madam,
in town.
You've had your turn. Let's let David Birchie speak.
What I was saying was, right now, Orleans, thanks to the provincial Liberals not bringing a job provincially job into Orleans, and they did not bring a federal job. Obviously, when they were in power, Andrew Leslie did not bring one job in on that basis. There are now 50 jobs, I stand corrected, 50 jobs out of 150,000 in the public service. My commitment to the residents of Orleans is I will work tirelessly. I will not be visiting people all over the country or elsewhere, as past Liberal MPs have done. I will work hard for you and Orleans. It's important to bring jobs into our area, and that will help the environment. It will regulate and abate some of the traffic problems we have. It will also affect and reduce our carbon emissions. It's a responsible way to address the problem, and it's one that I deliver results when I do something, unlike Marie-France Lalonde, who was involved, frankly, at the provincial level and chose not to address the labor problem in Orleans.
Okay.
You want to say anything, or can I have it? Because for me, it's going to be important, because it's not just about federal employment. You know what? We've always used to compare, and we still compare ourselves to the West. My belief is that we have something coming to Orleans, which is the train. The LRT is coming to Orleans. This is our game changer. And we fought hard to have it all the way to Trim Road. The former MP and myself
and
as
Mr.
the former
Harper,
MVP.
you didn't do any money for that.
That's very nice. Actually, 50%.
No, Mr. Harper brought the LRT
again,
number one in.
Again, not at all, Mr. Birchie.
Well,
50% of the funding from Place d'Orleans to Trim Road is provincial Liberal money only that was brought.
We haven't even started
and
it.
federal money.
No, actually, Mr. Ford was
the
here.
procurement's in place, Mr. Birchie.
No, that's
again,
like your health
you
hub.
really
Stop
don't
there,
know.
and we'll go back to Michelle Peterson. I asked you the question. You get the last 30 seconds.
Thank you. What I really like about the Green Party's plan and vision for Canada and how it will affect Orleans is that we're really committed to investing in infrastructure. And when I think of all the projects underway, I think that this is an enormous potential for the Greens to put their work, their dedication. I commit to being dedicated to this cause of boosting the local economy, of having things that are common sense where federal employees can work from Orleans, and we're also growing small businesses.
Okay. Thank you. We have time for one more question. In this case, though, there won't be a debate. I'm just going to ask a question, and I'll give each of you 60 seconds to answer the question. Let's pick up on what we were just talking about with regard to light rail. The commitment is there for phase 2 of light rail, which will, of course, bring trains further into the east end of the city. But what about phase 3? The City of Ottawa is looking to the provincial and federal governments to share the cost of phase 3 on a 50-50 basis. So not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but 50-50 from the province and the federal government. Would you commit to supporting 50% as the federal government's share? Marie-France Lalonde.
So I'm very proud to be part of a team, a federal Liberal team that is bringing investment into our economy. And we know that with a strong investment in our infrastructure comes jobs. There are currently an environmental assessment that's underway, that's undertaken by the City of Ottawa for that phase 3. Let's not forget that we are the party, the Liberal Party, who brings investment, who brings money to the table for infrastructure and public transit. So my commitment is to continue to invest for every residents of Ottawa, including those in Orleans for sure, but for all Ottawa residents to benefit from public transit.
Okay, David Birchie, Conservative candidate.
Thank you. It's clear that we have to improve on the transportation in Ottawa, in Greater Ottawa, and in Orleans. We are committed, and I will fight very hard to make sure that all of Ottawa gets the appropriate transit funding that it requires and deserves. I think it's very important for me, that, and as an East End Orleans person, that we make sure that the fruits of the labor of having a healthier environment, a more prudently run economy is present for all of our residents, but also in Orleans, we have to get the train in phase 2 done. We have to also have certain criteria in that. And when the federal government advances money, I think it behooves them to make sure that all the parties fulfill their obligations in a timely manner. They're providing the funds. They have to start acting responsibly and making sure those funds arrive and the job is delivered on time.
Okay, that's time. Michelle Peterson, the Green Party candidate. You've
Thank
got
you.
60 seconds as well.
I can say with certainty that the Green Party will willingly contribute to this plan of Phase 3 and will commit the funds needed to bring it to a reality here in Orleans. I think it will be vital to the Orleans community to have this addition to our community. The Green Party is looking for an all-hands-on-deck approach to climate change and to using that to better our communities and our social services. We will engage with municipal level government, provincial level government. We're willing to even work across party lines to really help advance the Canadian communities towards green infrastructure. And so the LRT for us is the most natural fit.
Okay. Thank you, candidates. We're now going to move to the closing statements. Again, you will each have 60 seconds to speak directly to the voters in Orleans. We're going to do those in the reverse order of the opening statements, beginning with Green Party candidate Michelle Peterson. Go ahead.
Residents of Orleans, at this point in time, I'm calling on you to consider voting differently. Traditionally, we have had liberal and conservative representation in Orleans, and what I'm hearing at the doors is that you're looking for change. Elizabeth May is the federal leader that has had the highest approval rating consistently. I think she has demonstrated her approach to leadership is one that's based on honest and ethical and caring approach. As a representative of the Green Party, I will commit to that approach for myself as well. I'm here to represent you, I'm here to represent the community, and to move us forward while using climate change crisis as a pivotal opportunity to grow our community and make it flourish and get Canada back on track as a leader, not only of environmental justice, but as social justice as well. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Conservative candidate, David Birchie. You've got 1 minute as well.
Ladies and gentlemen of Orleans, it's a pleasure for me to be here with you. I have spoken a bit about how the Trudeau government is running unrelenting deficits, over $80 billion in the first 4 years, with plans to do $90 billion before he talks about some other plans he has. But another thing that people are talking to me about at the door, and this is particularly important for me as a former part-time Crown attorney and a human rights prosecutor, is the fact that this federal government lacks the ethical comportment and understanding of the law, it appears, at the highest levels, including the Prime Minister and his assistants and advisors, to understand that ethical conduct is critical. We are all, no one is above the law, and this Prime Minister thinks he is. He thinks his friends are, and he wages a battle to help his friends. Please consider and vote for me to be your responsible and ethical MP.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, the closing statement from Marie-France Lalonde, the Liberal candidate.
Thank you. My commitment to the social and economic life of our community goes back 20 years. I have a proven track record of putting our community first and getting results. I will work hard to champion the things that matters most to the people of Orléans. I will advocate for infrastructure funding for the MIFO, ensure funding for the Blackburn Arena. I will work with the necessary partners to ensure work is done on the St. Joseph revitalization, and I will champion an environment interpretation center at Petrie Island. I am ready to choose forward with you and for you. On October 21st, it will be an honor for me to receive your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for participating in our debate. I'll remind you that Election Day is October 21st. There are also advance polls the week before on the Thanksgiving weekend, and you can join Rogers TV and 1310 News for live coverage of the election results locally and nationally on October the 21st at 9 p.m. Thank you for watching.